Good evening, and welcome to the Royden B. Davis S.J. Distinguished Author Award presentation hosted by the Friends of the Weinberg Memorial Library. I'm Phil Condren. It's a monumental weekend here at the university. The dedication of the Loyola Science Center, all of the parents that were here to meet their students and bring them out to dinner tonight, and of course this exciting event. And then Thursday in New York is the President's Business Council dinner, and I hope many of you will be able to attend that. During the light fair, I was asked exactly how it came to be that I was chosen to be the Toastmaster for this evening, and that's truly a very good question. And the answer is, the obvious answer is that the obvious choices obviously aren't available. For example, Monsignor Quinn, not to be confused with Father Kevin Quinn, Monsignor Joseph Quinn, left Carbondale a few years ago on the Casey Highway, went to the Great White Way, and hasn't found his way back yet, so he's not available. Pat Leahy, you remember Pat Leahy? Pat Leahy was just spotted in Wilkes-Barre being saluted as a colonel. And all the Kardashians are out doing whatever Kardashians do. As a card-carrying friend of the Weinberg Memorial Library, I was asked to lunch by Betsy Moyland and Charles Kratz, and I accepted and made the mistake of showing up in a suit and tie. And obviously, the criteria for being Toastmaster tonight isn't very high because I didn't spill any pasta on my tie, and there's no free lunch. Here I am. Well, thank you. That's very kind. This evening's Distinguished Author festivities launched the 20th anniversary celebration of the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Memorial Library. A little later, you'll be treated to a nice retrospective of the library's highlights, but let's think back 20 years ago to 1992 for a few minutes. And I know the students here are saying, what's he, crazy? We weren't even here then, but stay with us for a minute. In 1992, George Herbert Walker Bush was president, and Ross Perot and Bill Clinton wanted his job. It was the year that boxer Mike Tyson was convicted for rape, and the LA police were acquitted for beating Rodney King, leading to massive riots in Los Angeles. The top books for that year, 1992, were Dolores Claiborne, The Pelican Brief, Gerald's Game, another King effort, and two by Danielle Steele, Mixed Blessings, and Jules. The top TV shows were 60 Minutes, Roseanne, Home Improvement, and Murphy Brown. Brings back memories for somebody. 1992 was the year Johnny Carson aired his last Tonight Show. It was also the year that Bill Clinton told us he didn't inhale. And Dan Quayle tried to convince a young student that you could spell potato with an E. The students are whispering, what's a Dan Quayle? Did I really hear somebody say, isn't there an E in potato? And 1992 is the year that the Weinberg Memorial Library was dedicated. And we have a delightful program tonight, so let's get to it. The Reverend Ron McKinney, S.J., Professor of Philosophy here at the University of Scranton, will deliver our invocation. Father McKinney, if you would.
Before I invoke the Spirit, I want to publicly thank Jay Perini for helping me get tenure 20 years ago. I needed one more article to be eligible, and this one article had been rejected everywhere. And then I saw an article by Jay Perini entitled The Greening of the Humanities. And I said, it's a lovely title. I think I'll steal it. So I wrote mine, The Greening of Postmodernism, sent it off, got accepted, I got tenure, and so I'm here today. I just have one last favor for Jay. It would make me feel good not to be the only thief here if you would admit that you pilfered that phrase from somebody else in turn. Let's bow our heads and pray for God's blessing. Lord, we thank you for this great opportunity to celebrate tonight a wonderful institution of the Weinberg Memorial Library, as well as the memory of a gentle, witty soul, Father Royden Davis, who generously gave so many of his new books to the rest of us who are too cheap to buy our own. And so we ask you to bless our author today. May he continue in the success of his writing career in the future. We ask you to bless our benefactors here. May they continue to buy books, to read them, to enjoy them, so they can give us more money next year. And we ask you to bless this food, which we have ravenously devoured already. And last of all, to inebriate ourselves with the renewed appreciation of white whales and the glories of postmodern plagiarism. Amen.
It's not often invocation gets an applause. Well earned. Father, it must be challenging to be a philosopher in Scranton. It's a place where a friend reminds us that sometimes less than one language is spoken here. So do you know what you get when you cross the Godfather with the philosopher? An offer nobody can understand. So we'll move along. I'll stop picking on you, Father. Charles Kratz will get our program going with this evening, and I take a moment to introduce him and tell you about him. I did a little research on Charles. It's as high as this podium, but we'll get started. Charles is the Dean of the Library and Information Fluency at the University of Scranton, a position he's held since 1991. And he came to us from Hofstra and Rider University, and he also serves as an adjunct faculty member here at the U. Charles received his Bachelor of Arts in History and his Master of Arts in American History from the University of Notre Dame, and his Master's of Library Science from the University of Maryland. He has a truly impressive record of service to national and statewide library organizations with a list of acronyms as high as this podium, such as the ACLA, the ALA, LAMA, and it keeps going and going. And if I told you what they mean and all the volunteer elected positions he held, we'd be here till Halloween. So please give a warm welcome to Dean Charles Kratz.
Welcome, everyone, and this is truly a milestone for us tonight. But I want to do two things quickly. Betsy Mullen has said to me, I have to explain what the boxes on the tables are. The purple boxes are for you to take your cupcakes home if there are any left. So remember that, you know. We didn't forget to put a treat in the box. All right? And it's Father Ron's birthday today, and I want to wish him a happy birthday. He's very special to us in the Weinberg Library. He's participated in most of these events over the years, and he means a great deal to us and the University of Scranton. So I want to thank Phil and welcome everyone. We're honored to have you with us tonight to celebrate the 20th anniversary and our very distinguished guest, Jay Perini. With great jubilation tonight, we officially kick off our year-long celebration of the Weinberg Library's 20th anniversary. But I want you to join me for a few minutes to take a look back where we began and a journey over the past 20 years.
The library is a place where minds meet. And where a student and a faculty member, where they each have an opportunity to meet great thinkers and writers, but who are not physically present on campus, but who are present by their spirit, by their writings, and so on. And so a library should be the place where our students would have their imaginations opened up by the great people of the world. And that's very much in the Jesuit tradition.
Alumni Memorial Library was built in 1959 to serve a relatively small student body. The library was an important part of the educational process at the university, but by the early 1970s, enrollment was growing at breakneck speed. The school became co-ed, and as the years passed, the student body doubled, and the university began to achieve national recognition for its academic excellence. The library's useful life was extended by selective weeding, conversion of printed material to microfilm, and installation of compact shelving, but eventually the library had reached its limit. Expansion of the library was discussed, but several major drawbacks meant the only option was to build a new facility. So in August of 1988, a committee was formed to examine the details of such a venture, and by the following August, plans were finalized and fundraising had begun.
We began the second Cornerstone campaign to meet desperate needs for classrooms, laboratories, scholarships, and recreation space. We are here today to finish what we began, to launch the biggest and most important capital project of our history, the University of Scranton Library Campaign, the gateway to the future. The library is the essential, non-human element which contributes to our meaning. It touches the arts as well as business and the sciences. It focuses both faculty and students on the intellectual aspect of university life. It keeps us in touch with the knowledge of the past and with what is happening today, and therefore it allows us intelligently to form the future.
I think the library is intimately involved with the education of every student at the library, and I do feel that it's our responsibility to assist both the students and faculty in their research and supporting curriculum through having up-to-date reference materials available to them at all times.
I feel that the library is to support the curriculum, primarily, and that means primarily students who have a lot of dreams, a lot of hopes about what this library will do.
Ground was broken for the new facility in July of 1990, and 23 months later, June 8, 1992, the doors opened on the new Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Memorial Library. The new library is not only the intellectual center of the University of Scranton, but the geographic center as well. The university has seen a great deal of expansion, construction, and renovation of its 50-acre campus, especially in the last 10 years. But this 5-story, 80,000 square foot building was the largest project ever undertaken by the institution. The L-shaped structure has a unique architectural design that integrates the library with its surroundings by taking all its colors, textures, and materials from neighboring structures. The South Teaching and Administrative Wing is reminiscent of the Scranton estate with its light gray cast stone panels and limestone colored cornices. The North Wing, which houses the stacked shelving and study spaces, mirrors the traditional orange iron spot brick found on most university buildings. Scranton West Mountain stone is used to form one side of the landscaped plaza, joining it seamlessly to the existing retaining wall of the Gunster Memorial Student Center. But perhaps the most prominent feature is the semicircular, 2-story glass-walled Prodeo et Universitate room.
The idea of a drum shape, a round shape, seemed to occur fairly early on in the design. It is a 2-story round glass room, and at night it does function as a beacon on the campus. It truly lights up the entire area all around it.
It is not simply bricks and mortar or beautiful designs and paintings that a library is all about. It is about learning. It is about touching the world beyond Scranton. It is about touching the greatest minds and even the lesser struggling ones that are manifestations of God's glory in our world.
Without first-rate libraries, we could not build the future or the past and the present, and the process of education and discovery would erode and diminish. Thus, today, we celebrate more than just a new building and its impressive architecture, but we also celebrate a place, the heart of our campus, where ideas, and especially the sharing of ideas, are encouraged to grow and flourish. On behalf of the University Library and the library staff, we invite you to visit our wonderful new facility with its many places of inspiration, warmth, comfort, and reassurance. And we encourage you to return often to use our gateway to the future.
20 years ago, on September 25th, 1992, I had the great privilege to participate in the dedication of the Weinberg Memorial Library. 20 years later, the Weinberg is still a living and dynamic environment, serving our faculty, students, and all of northeastern Pennsylvania. A milestone anniversary is a wonderful opportunity to reflect on the past and to set goals for our future. We have a rich history here at the Weinberg Memorial Library and many accomplishments over those 20 years. So let me talk about a few of those accomplishments. First, an enormous growth of our collections: print, electronic, special collections, and our media collections. An enormous growth of our services and resources. A growth of our staff. A growth of our collaboration and partnering with our faculty and our students. We hope in all things that we do that we always look at our services and our resources through the lenses of our students and our faculty. We've also seen an enormous growth of our infrastructure. A new 24-hour space, new group study rooms, a Java City coffee bar that many of our students over the years, including student government, asked us to consider adding to the library. Remodeling of our second floor, which we just completed over the summer. Growth of our emerging technologies, and establishment of our Friends of the Library group in 1992. I had no idea when I established that group in 1992 the enormous support and contributions that would make to the library. And many of those leaders who are in the room tonight have been with us since the beginning. I take great pride in a number of people, and I want to thank them tonight. First, our staff, the Weinberg Memorial Library staff. We couldn't have the quality of our resources and services without that staff. I take great pride in our collaborations and partnerships with our faculty and students. And I take great pride in the Friends of the Library organization and what they've contributed to the Weinberg Library. And finally, yes, we definitely still have those dreams that Professor Katie Duke talked about 20 plus years ago. And yes, we are still that gateway to the future. In fact, I would say the gateway to the future and beyond.
My friends, it's hard to believe that the Weinberg Memorial Library is 20 years old. 18 months ago, when I was transitioning to my new job as the president of the university, the library was one of the first buildings I visited. For me, a library is both a symbol of what goes on at a university and the reality of the learning experience. I was very happy to see that the building, despite being almost 20 years old, was and continues to be state-of-the-art. This provides us a great opportunity here on campus to celebrate this great institution and to celebrate the entire campus, the University of Scranton. It provides us an opportunity to look back with pride and to look forward to the great promise that our university has. So on behalf of the entire university community, I want to congratulate Dean Charles Kratz and his entire staff for the great job they do at the library. We look forward to a future full of opportunity, and the library will be at the center of the growth and new opportunities here on campus.
So for the people at the Weinberg Memorial Library and for the University of Scranton, you can see that for us, we took a very nostalgic look back, but this is truly a milestone for us, for the library and for the university. When we started to plan this anniversary a year ago, we wanted it to be a special celebration, and I'm absolutely ecstatic to see the room filled tonight. Of course, I never realized that when we would get to celebrate these 20 years, that I actually would get to view myself aging in literally 10 minutes. However, when we first introduced the Weinberg Library in 1992, it was built from the generosity of hundreds of donors that contributed to the Gateway to the Future of campaign. 20 years later, after the Weinberg Library is still a very dynamic environment, serving not only our faculty and students, but as you can see from people in the room, all of northeastern Pennsylvania, and that's something that I treasure. A milestone anniversary is a wonderful opportunity to reflect back on the past and to set the goals for the future, knowing that the Weinberg is more than just knowledge inside its books and journals. We want to expand and create additional synergistic spaces for our university community in northeastern Pennsylvania. Gifts during the Weinberg's 20th year will fund 3 priorities: the expansion of collections, the continued adoption of technology that has made us an example of excellence in library innovation, and the growth of our collaborative spaces for bringing our students, faculty, and our community together. And just as the resources in our library were authored by many scholars, our future will need support. So I'm only going to do 2 PRA pieces tonight. You have a gift card, pledge card in your program tonight. So any amount that you can help to fund our projects and can keep the Weinberg at the forefront of library learning and innovation, not only for our campus community, but for northeastern Pennsylvania, is critical to us. And then a final PR piece for the evening. Please join us over the next year, particularly the next several months. In the back of your program, you'll see a list of events because we're beginning a year-long celebration with our 20th anniversary series. Lectures by visiting scholars and librarians, and a conversation on October 30th with the acclaimed playwright Stephen Karam and the Director of Public Programs at New York Public Library, Paul Hogengraber, all sponsored with the great help of the Schimmel Forum. And a very special wine tasting event with 7 local Pennsylvania wineries, sponsored with the Leahy Clinic for the Uninsured, on Friday, November 16th. Keep all these dates in mind. So quickly, I'm going to mention and do some thank yous. On behalf of the University of Scranton and the Friends of the Weinberg Library, I want to extend a warm welcome to our guest of honor, Jay Perini, and Jay's over here. You haven't met him, he's raising his hand. At our table right here is a very, very dear friend and the president of the American Library Association, Maureen Sullivan, who is with us tonight. The president of the University of Scranton, the Reverend Kevin Quinn, S.J. Dr. Hal Bailey, who is our university provost and vice president for academic affairs, and he's right here. The co-chairs of our event, and we couldn't have done this event this year without them. Mary McDonald, who's at our table here, sitting right next to her. And Betsy Moylan, and what more can I say about these 2 people? I mean, they are absolutely terrific. And the Reverend Ron McKinney, who did our invocation tonight, and Philip Condren, who's our Master of Ceremonies. Thanks, everyone. Jay Perini is a noted author and scholar, and I can think of no better connection to make to the work of the Friends of the Weinberg Library. In 1992, the Friends were established to reach the hearts of book lovers. And I know we're moving into the electronic world, but there are still book lovers here, whether it's on your Kindle or whether it's in print. So But the Friends also wanted to provide a glimpse for all of us into the innermost hearts and souls of writers, and I hope we never lose that. Our Distinguished Author Series was born out of their interest to recognize and honor the fiction and nonfiction authors of note and bring them to the Scranton community to give us an opportunity to hear their literary pursuits and get their impressions of their careers. Planning an event such as this can't be done without the contributions of many people. And we've already recognized Father Roy Davis. You know, he was the first president of the Friends of the Weinberg Library and a dear friend to me. It was always his dream that the Friends would build an organization and would passionately support the university's library. And I think 20 years later, to this day almost, I think he would say we fulfilled his dream, definitely. And a most important note, I want to recognize our sponsors and how much we appreciate their support. They're all noted in the program. You'll find each of them there. Many of them have been with us at the beginning of this series in the mid-90s, so that's really significant. Their generosity contributes so much to what we do here tonight, but also to the success of the Weinberg Memorial Library, and we are so indebted to them. And their generosity also supports our University of Scranton students being part of this evening tonight, and many of them are in the back of the room, and we're delighted that they could be with us as well tonight. So finally, I just want to quickly thank an outstanding group of volunteers. You've already heard me mention Mary McDonald and Betsy Moylan. They had an outstanding planning group, and they're noted in your program, and I'm so indebted to them. Ann Moskowitz is in the room. We're seated right over here at table 2. You know, many of you may not recognize the program, the Leadership Lackawanna, but it's a great program run by the Chamber in Scranton. Ann was my mentor years ago when I joined that program, and Ann has been a very special friend to me over the years and is the president of our Friends of the Library. Her leadership is always so important to the Friends organization, and we are indebted to her. And then finally, a very special thanks to Rob Kennedy from Information Technology Services Department, who did a superb job at putting together tonight's film. He was ably assisted by Brian Snap, and our CTLE staff. I also want to thank Brian Fretzko for his outstanding work with tonight's video that ran during dinner. And last but not least, there are very few people in this room that have not met Kim Fetzko. Kim Fetzko, I don't know how she does it because she just ran the University for a Day program last week, so she's had 2 major programs in 2 weeks, and I'm sure she's exhausted by this time. But she is an incredible asset to everything that we do in the Friends and Schimmel Forum. So the centerpiece in all communication for me is the critical importance of capturing a story in a written word. And Jay's accomplished this 1,000-fold, in my opinion, in all of his writings. His novels, poetry, biographies, criticisms, he takes us on a journey in his writings. And the contemporary authors in 2004, Jay said, down the road, I want to focus on poems and novels. Now, this is down the road for Jay, poems and novels. I think that is where my instincts are taking me, away from criticism and biography. But what I like about the life of writing is the furious unpredictability of the undertaking. A writer must respond to the world around him, bringing a weight of language against the weight of the world, looking for that sense of equilibrium. I hope to do this as long as I can, and he'll tell us about that in a few minutes. Jay, thank you so much for providing that special look into your world and for sharing with us your great passion for writing. Congratulations from the University of Scranton and from the Friends of the Weinberg Library and from all of us here tonight. So now it's my great honor to introduce my good friend and colleague, Maureen Sullivan. I've had the great pleasure over the years of my career You know, when Phil talks about my, you know, she would rise way above me in terms of the podium here. I've had the great pleasure to work with her over the years very closely in many different professional endeavors. And I also had the pleasure of working with her husband. We won't say how many years ago that was, when we were both at the University of Maryland in the earlier parts of our year. But how lucky for me, when I started to plan this, that our anniversary year would coincide with Maureen's year as the president of the American Library Association. She's a widely recognized leader and educator in the library profession. Her career has included positions as the Human Resources Administrator at 2 major academic research libraries, a consultant, a trainer with the Association of Research Libraries, a member of the faculty in the Management Leadership program in the Information Professions PhD program at Simmons College, and in one of the annual institutes at Harvard. Her contributions and truly visionary leadership in the profession has been recognized in 3 major awards. Most recently, in 2010, she was named at ACRL, which is the Association of College and Research Libraries, given their highest honor as Academic Research Librarian of the Year. Please extend a warm welcome to my very good friend and the president of the American Library Association, Maureen Sullivan.
It is indeed an honor and a privilege for me to be here this evening, and I'm probably one of the few people in the room who could identify what all of those initials, Phil, stood for. Because I've known Charles throughout my career as a librarian, and the perspective that I bring this evening to give you great hope about the possibilities for the future is the contributions that he has made to the nation's libraries and to librarians, and therefore to communities across the country. Among the many things that he has done that have really been a hallmark of our success in the American Library Association is the work that he's done on our Committee on Legislation. But he and I first came to know each other when we were both fairly new in our careers, and we were part of the division that focuses on leadership and management competence in the field. But I've been invited here this evening to address very briefly the topic, Transforming Libraries, What Lies Ahead. And while I have some ideas that I'll be sharing with you, I think what you have seen already this evening is what we should all give the most attention to. And that is the very strong foundation that this university, through its support of the Weinberg Library, has created that really prepares not only the library but the university to continue its excellence and its service to its students. I was quite struck when the film started to see the emphasis on students, because in my memory in 1992, many academic and research libraries were not yet focusing on the student and had not yet done what I've come to call turning outward to really understand the importance of the library in its community. And you heard the number of comments that were focused on this library is the intellectual center, but it is also the geographic center of this learning experience. The second reason, beyond really wanting to be part of this celebration with Charles and with so many of you here this evening, that I very much wanted to be here, is that I know another side of Jay Perini. And I know this because I have a nephew who was his student a couple of years ago at Middlebury College. And I know that Jay Perini, the teacher, makes a difference in the lives of students, because he was the person in my young nephew's life who turned him on to literature. This was a star hockey player at Middlebury who was mostly interested in politics, and not the same politics that I'm interested in. But what you did, Jay, for this young man is to introduce him not just to literature, but to poetry. And for a 20-year-old to be able to have conversations with me about poetry was a very enriching experience when he was an undergraduate at Middlebury. So as I think about where we're headed with libraries in the future, one of the questions that I wrestle with is, what will the library be like? And part of my answer is, I do think there will be a facility, whether we call it a library or not. There will be this facility that will be a convening place. And here at the University of Scranton, In the Weinberg Library, you have a facility that has endured and has really been meaningful for the experience of the student for the past 20 years. I would project for you that that will continue to be the case in the next 20 years. What happens in that facility may be different. I'm also one who believes that as we're seeing so much more information and knowledge available in the digital realm, we are going to continue to see print. I do think books are going to continue, and I'll tell you my most recent example of thinking that books will endure is I was given yesterday by the publisher in New York a copy of J.K. Rowling's new book, which I've started, and for those of you who may be interested, it's fun so far. But I now am paying attention to who publishes books because we have this big issue about ebooks not being available for sale to libraries from some of the publishers. But I took heart when I opened it up and I was looking for the publisher information, but that book is being printed in the United States. So there is as much variety and difference happening in publishing as is happening in education and therefore happening in libraries. Libraries over the centuries have been those central places in communities where people have come for information, for self-directed or what we sometimes now call independent learning. They've also been places where people have been able to come to find fellowship and to just be in a place where others are, where there's the opportunity for reading, there's the opportunity for study, but there's also the opportunity to do work and to convene meetings where the results of those meetings are going to make a difference for the larger community. I think one of the things that we'll see in the future is more libraries of higher education engaging with school and public libraries to really find ways to collaborate and share resources in order to serve those communities. I think we're also going to find libraries will continue to be places where we can bridge the digital divide, and particularly as more publishers are responding to the need to help us in that effort. And I also believe that libraries are going to continue to be places in higher education where administrators can look to them and see the new ideas, the best practices around the retention and engagement and development of staff, best practices for being effective in how it is that we use resources, but also best practices directed at how it is that we can serve and make a difference for people in our communities. And part of what informs my thinking is my deep belief that every human being every day is searching to find meaning and purpose in their lives. It is the one thing that I think we all hold in common. Many of us find that meaning and purpose through the work that we do. Some of us find that meaning and purpose through the ways in which we contribute to our communities. We do different work, we're operating in different sectors, but we also celebrate those experiences that we all have a stake in. And this evening is a celebration of the Weinberg Library here at the University of Scranton, all that has been achieved in the last 20 years. And we have such a variety of individuals in this room. And I'm only going on based on the people whom I've met, and there haven't been more than 20 people in the room whom I've met, but all of them coming from very different sectors. But here to celebrate something very important to the university. I'd like to close my remarks by reaffirming some of what you heard in the video as well. The library will continue to be an intellectual center, and that intellectual center will be used in the ways in which future students, faculty, and others in the community will need to use it to satisfy whatever their particular needs are. I believe that we'll see the increase in digital content, but we also will continue to see content available in print. I think we will see new forms of technology and innovation that not anyone in this room could imagine today. Who would have imagined even 5 years ago that we'd be seeing television shows and movies on our smartphones? What will it be like in 5 years? I don't know. But I have a deep and abiding belief that the university, as a key educator and preparer of young people for fulfilling lives, will continue to be very important. And that as long as the university is important, the library will be a vital intellectual center. I always remember when I hear someone describe the library as an intellectual center, something that Andrew Carnegie said many years ago. The library is a place of joy and imagination. The university is a place of joy, imagination, and learning, and the library is its partner in that. I'd like to close my remarks with just a couple of expressions of appreciation here. I'm particularly pleased that I was invited to be part of the program that is so important to someone who's made a difference in my professional life, and that is Charles Kratz. I also want everyone in the room to be aware that another one of our colleagues, Linda Williams, who serves with me on the executive board of the American Library Association, is here. And I know Linda is here also because of the ways in which she's benefited from Charles's friendship, colleagueship, and his great wisdom, what he has shared with us over the years. I also briefly want to tell you this is my second experience this month, having something to do with Harry and Jeanette Weinberg. They are funding renovations of school libraries, and the first 3 of those school libraries were opened in Baltimore in the second week of this month, and I represented the American Library Association there. And I did that knowing that I was coming here. You're blessed to have had the support of Harry and Jeanette Weinberg, but also that foundation. And in closing, I would like to suggest that each and every person in this room has the opportunity to continue to support this library, the student experience and education here at the University of Scranton. And I would just remind you, as Charles did, there is a pledge card in the guidebook that we were all given to this evening. Thank you so much, and I very much wish you well in the next 20 years.
Thank you, Maureen, and thank you for the valuable insights into the future of information accessibility, both here and throughout the country. And I have to share with you that there's a warm spot in our heart for librarians in our family, because my sister is also a college librarian. We know what challenges you face on a daily basis and what opportunities you have, and the joy of working with students. So congratulations and thank you. Next up are 2 great ladies. They've co-chaired not only this evening's delightful award event, but as you've heard, they're also chairing the year-long 20th anniversary celebration launched this evening. They've assembled and led a committee of 27, and they're in the back of your program, 27 devoted, dedicated friends of the library to help plan and educate the festivities tonight and throughout the year. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome the dynamic duo, Mary McDonald and Betsy Moylan.
Thank you very much, Phil. Each year, the University of Scranton's Friends of the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Memorial Library celebrate the written word with the Royden B. Davis, S.J. Distinguished Author Award event and book signing. The first award was presented in 1997 to actor and poet Jack Palance, not your usual writer. Previous recipients were Steve Barry, who was our speaker last year, Mary Gordon, Philip Margolin, James Grappando, Lisa Scottolini, Linda Fairstein, Mary Higgins Clark, and her daughter Carol Higgins Clark, and Malachi McCourt. So we have a very well-rounded group of authors. The Distinguished Author Award is named in memory of the late Royden B. Davis, who you've heard about earlier. Father Davis had a long and distinguished career at Georgetown University, where he served as the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, holding that post until 1989. In 1991, Father Davis returned to the University of Scranton, where he had served as a professor in the early 50s. He became the rector of the Jesuit community at that time and served also on the Board of Trustees at the university and at Scranton Prep. At the conclusion of his service as rector, he continued on as the chaplain of the Panuska College and associate campus minister. In recognition for his outstanding contributions to the university at that time, he was awarded the Pedro Arrupe S.J. Award for Ignatian Mission and Ministries. Father Davis was the founding member and the first president of our Friends group. He was very active in the Friends board from 1994 until his death in 2002. He will be remembered for his gentle smile. You've seen his photo here in some of the slides, his warm personality, and his passion for learning and devout belief. On a personal note, Father Davis, in reflection of Maureen's talk about J.K. Rowling, introduced me to Harry Potter. He had been to England one summer and came back with probably a first edition. I'm sure he gave it away. But he brought Harry Potter back from England long before it was really the phenomenon that it was here in Scranton. So he was one of the most eclectic readers that I've ever met. But the door would open on the elevator, and he'd come out of the elevator on the second floor, and you never knew what he would have in his little bag to leave at the reference desk and give to us. So he was truly a lover of books. Tonight we celebrate one of Father's greatest loves, and that was the love of reading and the importance of storytelling in the written word. We are delighted to have such an extraordinary scholar as J. Perini to receive the Father Davis Distinguished Author Award. The University of Scranton's Friends of the Weinberg Library present this year's award to J. Perini for his outstanding career in writing. And just a little bit of background on Jay. There is a nice biography in your program, but there are some highlights that I'd like to mention. Dr. Perini is a poet, a novelist, and a critic. He was born in Pittston and raised in Scranton, receiving his high school diploma from West Scranton High School. He attended Lafayette College in Easton, but spent a great deal of his college life in Scotland at the University of St. Andrews and returned there to receive his PhD. Dr. Perini also was the commencement speaker and received an honorary degree from the university in 2005. He began his academic career as an assistant professor of English at Dartmouth College, and at that time established and co-edited the New England Review. He, in 1982, moved on to Middlebury College and has been there for the rest of his teaching career. Sabbaticals and visiting scholar experiences in Great Britain at Christ Church College in Oxford and the University of London, as well as a sabbatical in Italy, rounded out many of his experiences. Both poetry criticism, biography, including biographies of John Steinbeck, Robert Frost, a special love of his, and William Faulkner round out some of his writings. His poetry, entitled Anthracite County, I wonder what that's all about, The Art of Subtraction, and several other collections have appeared and still remain in print. In December of 2009, a film adaptation of The Last Station, which is about the last year of the life of Leo Tolstoy, appeared and won, or was nominated. I'm sorry, that was a slip. It should have won 2 Oscar nominations. His most recent novel, which many of you have purchased and signed this evening, is entitled The Passages of H.M., all about Herman Melville. Jay and his wife, Devin, currently reside in Weybridge, Vermont. And so I would like to invite Dr. Hal Bailey and Dr. J. Perini up to the podium for the presentation of the award.
When Betsy gives me the mic, she steps back and crosses her fingers because there is a script, but as you have known, I've gone off it occasionally. So we're going to take the business route to Pittston, not the express lane. First of all, I'd like to add my thanks to everyone who is responsible for this evening. Dean Kratz and his staff have done a marvelous job. The Friends of the Library, Betsy and Mary in particular, have done a great job in promoting the library through events like this and the whole celebration. I also just want to congratulate the entire community for the 20th anniversary of the library. It is, in fact, a wonderful thing. And as Phil mentioned earlier, this is the culmination of what has been a wonderful week for the institution. We did dedicate the Loyola Science Center last night, And I'd just like to draw a theme from that to say something about the anniversary we have tonight. Last night, Professor George Gomez of the biology department described the science building as a shell and noted that we now have, the we being alumni, faculty, students, and friends of the institution, we now have the responsibility to fill that shell and make it a living part of the institution. Well, I would suggest that the library is a perfect example of what Professor Gomez had in mind. Over the last 20 years, under the wise leadership of Dean Kratz and his staff, this library has gone from a shell to the living home of the institution. It has made the appropriate adjustments in a world of terrific change for libraries, for the dissemination of information, and of course even for the mode of information that we have access to. So I think there is a great continuity here as we see new coming in, but we celebrate the maturity of the young but not quite new. And that would be obviously the library in its 20th anniversary. So I congratulate you all for participating in making the library the home that we see as also the future for the Science Center. Now, with regard to Dr. Perini, few people born in Scranton do not retain a lifelong connection with their hometown. We often welcome back prodigal sons and daughters who succumb to the lure of leaving the area and then are pulled back by memories, pulled back by the quality of life, pulled back by the quality of the people who are here. We're delighted that Dr. Perini has chosen to not so much be a prodigal son who comes back, but rather a prodigal son who comes to be profligate here with us. And then he leaves to sort of recharge the batteries and then come back. It is his commitment to our library. It's his commitment to this area that we are delighted to celebrate tonight. And Dr. Perini, we are grateful for your continued interest in the institution and in the area. We'll be presenting in a second you with this award, and we look forward to your coming back as an awardee emeritus to further support the library and the university. At this point, Betsy can uncross her fingers because she gave me what she wants me to read. Dr. Perini, in recognition of your remarkable literary achievements, the University of Scranton's Friends of the Weinberg Memorial Library honor you with its 2012 Royden B. Davis Distinguished Author Award and citation. The citation reads, "The Royden B. Davis Distinguished Author Award, presented to J. Perini, noted author. I have found my music in a common word." It's a quote from Jesuit poet Gerard Manley Hopkins. That's the citation dated the 29th of September, 2012, and signed by Ann Moskowitz, president of the Friends of the Weinberg Memorial Library, and Charles E. Kratz, Jr., Dean of the Weinberg Memorial Library and Information Fluency. Congratulations, Dr. Perini.
Thank you all. No need to stand for these people. Well, the word thank you keeps going around, so I'll try to say very little of that, but I am deeply grateful. It's lovely to be back in Scranton. I don't think of myself as a prodigal son, because you kind of have to leave to be a prodigal son, don't you? I've been coming here for 65 years. I was born in Pittston, and from 4 years old I was in West Side till I was 18. And I don't think there was a year I haven't been back at least 5 times. So I'm here all the time. And I told Father Quinn, I came as a graduation speaker here in 2005, but the University of Scranton is a place dear to me. I've been coming here since I was a kid, using the library. In fact, I often studied in the library here. And in fact, when I was writing my PhD thesis, I was using the old library constantly, because I was often here. And even though I was officially enrolled in St. Andrews in Scotland, I was frequently here, living over in West Side, working on my thesis, PhD dissertation. And I have an abiding affection for this place, for many of the professors. Scott Pillars was an old dear friend of mine, and I expect to come back often to the university. You can always invite me back. I've come to the Schummel Forum. In fact, my friends Sandra and Maury Myers have generously invited me several times, and I hope to keep coming back. So you haven't seen the last of me. I'll be around, and I'm just a Scranton boy, and here I am. And can't wait to call my wife back in Vermont afterward and she'll say, "What did they give you?" I'll say, "They gave me a piece of jagged glass." Is there a message there or what? I don't even want to touch that thing. Looks dangerous. But I am glad to have the award. It's always, also to be here on the 20th anniversary of this library is very special. It's a wonderful occasion because, for me growing up in West Side, my life for me really was my intellectual life, and the people, I had amazing teachers at West Scranton High School. Jim Loftus, who had gone to the University of Scranton. Alberta Mayer, who lived over on Green Ridge. I had astounding teachers, Ann Morris. And these teachers inspired me and really set me on the path to reading and writing. And I feel like I had a sense as a kid growing up that there was a rich intellectual life in Scranton. And in all my years of coming back here, I have felt this. The Scranton is a place with a surprisingly lively intellectual life. Although it's like the rest of America, most people don't notice it. But you are all here, and it is going on here. And I think we're here. Libraries and universities are places where we gather to celebrate the life of the mind. And to me, it's been my entire life, the life of the mind. I've been a scholar and a writer from the beginning. That's what I've done. And whenever I see pockets where people are gathering to celebrate books, thinking, free circulation of ideas, especially I love the University of Scranton because it celebrates the life of the spirit. And that's all very important to me. And I think so I'm proud to be here with you today. And I didn't hesitate for 2 seconds about coming here tonight. I'm driving down from Vermont. My life is such these days that I travel an insane amount, give an awful lot of talks, but this is one that means a huge amount to me. I'll tell you, I know you don't want me to spend too long here, and I don't want to spend too long here myself, but it's got nothing to do with you, just that you've been sitting here a long time already. But I want to talk a little bit about my own writing. I hesitate to do so. I'm actually kind of a reticent guy. I don't like to talk about myself. I was teaching at the Bread Loaf Writers Conference this summer, and I was at a cocktail party, and this very famous writer friend of mine was talking about his new book, and he went on and on and on about his book. And after about an hour, with the cocktail going warm in my hand, he saw that I was growing a little dull, a little disaffected, and he said, enough about me. He said, what did you think of my book? So, there's a lot of that among writers, and I'm not that kind, I would happily tell you all about each of my 60 books and spend maybe half an hour on each one, but I'm not going to. Relax. You'll get to go home. And I love my friend Father Roy's worry. I love the fact that he stole my title, The Greening Of, and I want to assure him that I stole that title. So there we go. What goes around comes around. And The Greening Of. There was a book in the 1960s called The Greening of America. And when I wrote that book, that article about the whole environmental movement in America called the Greening of America. I stole it from them. So you're taking it from that guy. Complain to him, not me. And the titles go round and round and round. The Last Station, as you know, was my book about Tolstoy's life that was made into the Hollywood film. And I loved it when I was at a book signing recently, and a woman came up to me and wanted an autograph, and she handed me the book. She said, "I'm just so excited." She said, "I never thought, sir, in my life I would get to meet Leo Tolstoy." I said, she said, "How did you come up with that title, War and Peace?" And I said, "It's funny, I almost called the book Sex and Death." She said, "Oh, it wouldn't have done nearly as well." I said, "No. War and Peace was better." I said I was having a bad day when I came up with Anna Karenina. So, you know, I would say, you know, it looks like it's a great deal being an author, but it's endless humiliations. My kids keep telling me this, you know. And in fact, never forget, I came in 20 years ago with a manuscript I was so proud of having published, and I stuck it down on the kitchen table, and I said, "It's done." This big, you know, 1,000-page biography of John Steinbeck. And one of my kids said to me, "Daddy, how many more of these are you going to write before you're a dead buckaroo?" And that's a good question. You know, why do I keep doing this? You know, this book I was just signing, I suppose it's connected with this award, my last novel, The Passages of H.M. It's a terrible title, by the way. But H.M. is Herman Melville. And I really had a terrific time writing that book. It's about one of the greatest American imaginations, Herman Melville, author of Moby Dick and Billy Budd. You know, as a kid in West Side High School, I remember going down to the library in West Side High School when I was 15, and the librarian there, who was my mentor, Mrs. Godfrey, I don't know her first name, but she said to me, "Here's a book you'll like," and she gave me Moby Dick. And I thought it was like 2,000 pages. I said, "You got to be kidding me!" And I took it home, and I started reading it, and it took me about 20 years. But I really did. You know, I read that book actually over and over and over again, Moby Dick, and I wanted to get into the life of this mind. I went to visit his house in the Berkshires in Massachusetts. It's really only a couple hours south of Vermont, where I live. And I was fascinated when I discovered that Hawthorne, he moved there because Nathaniel Hawthorne lived 2 miles down the road, and he wanted to be near Hawthorne. And he kind of fell in love with Hawthorne. It drove his wife crazy, and the kids, they said he just wants to spend all of his time with Nathaniel Hawthorne. So it's the story of Melville and the writing of Moby Dick, and it's a sad story because here he is, he writes the greatest American book ever written, Moby Dick. And it got lousy reviews and sold 300 copies and was pulped. And then he died unknown. In fact, when he died, he hadn't published a word in 20 years. Billy Budd, his great masterpiece, was lying in his desk drawer, unfinished. It was not published till many, many decades after his death. Moby Dick didn't really find an audience until the mid-1920s. In fact, there was a one-line obituary for Melville in the New York Times when he died. It said, Inspector of Customs and one-time author, Henry Melville, dead. That's what it said in the New York Times. So, you know, so much for fame. But, you know, he was one of the greatest minds, and we are doing a film of this. I've written the script, and it's going to be shot next summer with Paul Giamatti playing Herman Melville. So I've been having a lot of fun working with Paul on the script. So we've got that cooking. I've been working in these, in addition to my poetry, which I still think of as the center of my life, I've been writing biographies and biographical novels. I read Life of Robert Frost, Life of John Steinbeck, Life of William Faulkner, and I've done these 3 biographical novels, among a lot of other books, but novels on the lives of Leo Tolstoy, the great German Jewish philosopher and intellectual, Walter Benjamin, who was chased by the Nazis over the Pyrenees into Spain in 1940. And I've done the script for that. It's going to be shot next summer with Stanley Tucci playing Walter Benjamin. And then I did this biographical novel about the life of Herman Melville. So those have been my biographical forays, and I'm hoping to keep it going. You know, I hesitate to say it in this company, but I have just finished what I hope is a major life of Jesus Christ. That's true. That's coming out in June, A Life of Jesus. And then I will have to go back and revise a novel that's been written 3 or 4 times now, a ghost story set on Lake Champlain. And then I will begin my official life of Gore Vidal, which I've been signed a contract to write. So that's due in 2015. So I have my work cut out for me, shall we say. So I don't want to go on too long now. What I'd like to do is just I was told that to make a few remarks and then take some questions. So ask me anything. I'd like you to ask me questions about stuff, and I'll take 10 minutes or so and answer them and then end. But do I have any questions? What questions would anybody like? There's a question over there. Yes.
Jay, you just said that you wrote a biography of Jesus Christ, and you've been asked to do one of Gore Vidal. So I'm curious, which of the 2 tasks do you think will have been the more daunting?
Okay, I'm just written the life of Jesus, and I'm about to write the life of Gore Vidal. And sort of, I guess the question is, you know, what's the difference between them? Let's just say that Jesus didn't think he was Gore Vidal. Thank you for the question, Paulette. It's a little incongruous, I know. But, you know, we take what comes before us, you know, and that's a great question. What's another question somebody would like to know? Now, there's one. Is that your hand up, sir? Yes, there. Yes. I wasn't sure whether you were giving a football goal, you were one of those bad referees, or you got a question for me.
Thank you. As you conveyed along the station, as you conveyed in the station, in Russia, literature has prestige, which I don't think is the same thing as popularity, to the point where men like Tolstoy or Dostoevsky can become almost like Old Testament prophets, even revered and heeded that way. Could you offer us a perspective on Solzhenitsyn? I noticed that in post-Soviet Russia, since he left New Hampshire, returned there, and died, there's been kind of a blankness about his life and reputation. Could he ever become an icon?
I mean, it's true that in Russia, authors are revered. In his own lifetime, Tolstoy was considered a prophet. And if he would come out of the railway station in Moscow, he would be mobbed by thousands of people. I mean, you have no idea how revered authors are to this day in Russia. You know, I've talked to a lot of Russian authors. I remember talking to Andrei Vozhnezhensky, and he said he would give a poetry reading in Moscow, and 100,000 people would come. They would have to he would fill a football stadium. You know, it's unbelievable. Solzhenitsyn, of course, I don't know what's happened to Solzhenitsyn's career and his writing, whether anybody reads it anymore, but he escaped during, you know, the terrible years of harsh communism in Russia and came to Vermont. And maybe 20 years ago it was, my habit always is to go to this little coffee shop in Middlebury every morning. When it opens at 8, I'm always there. And I sit there till 11, and I've done this now for 30 years. I'm in the same coffee shop every morning from 8 to 11, writing. That's my habit, and I'm there 6 days a week. Every day but Sunday, 8 to 11, I'm in the coffee shop. And about 25, 28 years ago, I was wandering down the street to the coffee shop, and it was kind of chilly, and I saw this beaten, rusted out Mercedes-Benz kind of come screeching up to the curb, almost ran into the parking meter. The guy slammed on the thing, put it in the park, and he got out, and he was staring at the parking meter, trying to think what to do with it. He was pressing the button down, and he looks up at me and he said, "Can you help me? Can you help me?" And I said, "Well, you've got to put a dime in there." He said, "What's a dime?" I said, "It's a little thing like this." And I gave it to him. So I said, "You're not from around here." He says, no, I'm not from around. He said, "I've moved to the area." I said, "Who?" I said, "May I ask your name?" He said, "I'm Alexander Solzhenitsyn." And it was. And I said, this is Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And I said, what brings you to Middlebury? Well, he did really live just up the mountain. He said, I want to buy shoe. Shoe. So I said, okay. I said, you are in luck. We have a thing in Middlebury called a shoe store. But I said it won't open till 9 o'clock. And so I said, come have a coffee. So I took him in the coffee shop, and we sat there, and he talked about coming. He said, don't spread the word I'm around here. He said, KGB, you never know. I said, I'm not with the KGB, I guarantee you. So we had a wonderful conversation. 9 o'clock, I take him down the street to buy shoe. And he's got this ragged beard, and he stank, frankly. I don't think he'd had a bath in I think he took a bath every month, whether he needed it or not, you know. So, and he had on kind of a ragged overcoat, and believe me, he needed a shoe store. And I went in, and I walked in, and a guy called Mr. Johnson, a very old gentleman who owned the store, Johnson's. I said, I've got a friend who would like to buy shoes. He looked at me, he said, you gotta be kidding me. I said, no. I said, he's a very important guy. Give him a pair of shoes. So he gave him shoes. But I thought, so that was my one experience. I sent him on his way with a pair of nice brogues, and he was very happy. He went back into his car and crashing up the hill. And that was the last time I saw Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And I've often wondered, thought about that. You know, it's amazing how you sort of have these chance encounters with somebody coming to buy shoe. And, you know, he's one of the great Russian authors. But I wonder if he's read now, you know, The Cancer Ward and so forth. Those were brilliant books, an amazing author. Another question? I'm not sure I answered that, but over there, yes.
As a scholar and a novelist.
Yeah.
And you've done your research on the academic research, and then you've done your biographical novel. Where, for students,
yeah.
when they read your biographical novel, how do they translate that into scholarly research?
You've asked a really great question. Biographical novel versus a scholarly biography. I'm sort of saying, essentially she's asking, to what degree can we trust your biographical novels to be anything, right? I mean, really, that's what you're asking me. Is it all bullshit? She's saying to me, I can read between the lines. I was born yesterday, but still. Let me tell you, when I write my biographical novels, there's a thing called the agreed upon facts. And if I say that Herman Melville sailed in 1849 on the SS Mauretania, or whatever, it's actually what he did. All the facts in my biographical novels are absolutely accurate. So it's where the imagination comes into play. It's like a flashlight that you shine into the dark corners of history. You're looking for the gaps. You don't know what people thought about things. Even when you get to biographies, it's baloney half the time. You know, I was just reading a biography of somebody, and it said, you know, Alexander Hamilton, it was raining. Alexander Hamilton stepped across the street, and he was depressed. How the hell did they know that? I actually said this to an historian last week. I was at the University of Minnesota giving a talk, and a woman was an historian. And she stood up and she said, I'm an historian, and to what degree is what you're doing history? I said, to what degree is what you're doing history? I said, I said, we're both fiction writers. I said, it's the Latin word fictio, or fingere, to shape. And fiction just simply means an arrangement of the agreed upon facts. Historians and biographers are all highlighting certain things, repressing other things, arranging things into a narrative. In fact, I was just recently in Israel giving a talk, and I wandered into a bookstore, and I said, where is the fiction section? And she said, oh, we don't have a fiction section. We have one section, because in the Hebrew only has one word, siporet, which means narrative. We don't make a distinguish between novels and biographies, that we have siporet. Well, it's true. We're all fiction makers. We're shaping, and you know, there are lesser or greater degrees of authenticity in any shaped narrative. And I think I have a high degree of scholarly veracity in my novels. They're all 100% true. But you know, the facts, you know, there's the great line in The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. He says, the English are always degrading truths into facts. And I try not to degrade truths into facts. I'm interested in the truth.
Well, can
Yes, continue. You can insult me some more. Go ahead. I don't care. I have a thin, I mean, I have a thick skin.
Just you have an explanation for I prefer not to.
Yes.
Okay, in your passages of HM. Is that from, is that an extrapolation or is that from a historical diary?
No, that's from one of Melville's novels.
Yes, that's from
Bartleby the Scrivener says, I prefer not to. So what I'm doing in the passage of HM, I'm often taking famous bits or bits from his novels and then try to imagine what in his own experience would have led him to write that thing in his novel. So that's why for someone who knows Melville's work, actually, if you know Melville's work, in the passage of HM, I've constantly taken phrases from Melville's stories and novels and poems and stitched them invisibly into the fabric of my own fiction. So I love doing that. And so, so talk about plagiarism. I mean, fiction is the higher plagiarism. And I'm really, writers are in conversation with other writers, right? All writing begins in reading. And my own life as a writer began with my reading. You know, we were just at lunch today. It was wonderful. Charles said, look up. You've got quotations from Gerard Manley Hopkins all around the room. Perfect for the Weinberg Library. Father Hopkins was a Jesuit in the 19th century in England, and he was one of the greatest poets of the age. And I've, in fact, I've got almost all of his poems memorized. And I was telling the one poem where it's so beautiful. In this fall season, a guy goes, the poet sees a little girl crying in the midst of an autumn wood, and her name is Margaret. And he says, Margaret, are you grieving over Golden Grove on leaving? Leaves like the things of man, you with your fresh thoughts care for. Can you? Ah, as the heart grows older, it will come to such sights colder. By and by, nor spare a sigh, though worlds of wanwood leaf mill lie. And yet you will weep, and know why. Sorrow's springs are the same. It is the blight man was born for. It is Margaret you mourn for. How moving is that? The child is, well, I didn't write it. I'm just reciting it. I'm like it's funny, when you learn things, I always try to commit my poems to memory. In my classes at Middlebury, a student said to me the other day, why is it everything you quote in class, you never have a note, and you're reciting these poems to us that are in our anthology, and you have them all by heart? And I said, you know what, if they don't stick to me, I'm not going to stick to them. I mean, poetry is memorable language, you know, and I even hesitate to interpret poems. I was just talking to a woman just came up to me last week, and I wished I'd known about this when I wrote my biography of Robert Frost. She said that she went to hear Mr. Frost read at the Breadloaf Writers Conference, where I teach in the summer. It's owned by Middlebury College in the summer of 1952. It's exactly 60 years ago. And she said he gave the final reading of the night, and he ended with his great poem, you know, Fire and Ice. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate that for destruction ice is also fine and would suffice. And then he blew out through the west doors of the room to applause. And he walked down the west lawn. He was smoking his cigarette. And she said she was a junior at Middlebury, and she followed him out in the night. He was under the stars looking up and smoking. And she went up to him and she said, excuse me, Mr. Frost, may I have a word with you? I have a question. He said, what? A question? She said, yes, Mr. Frost, may I ask you a question? Well, go ahead. She said, Mr. Frost, that last poem you read, Fire and Ice, what did it mean? I said, what did it mean? Fire and ice? God, he said, it meant this. Some say the world will end in fire. She said he recited the whole damn poem. So I'm tempted to do that. Next time somebody asks me if I'm Leo Tolstoy, I'm going to recite the whole damn novel, word for word. And I mean War and Peace, not The Last Station. Take that. One more question and I'll say enough of you. Yes, who has a question? I'm sure someone has one more. There's a question back in the back there. I know you're all bursting with questions, but I'm bursting with answers, believe me.
My husband is a teacher at West Scranton High School.
Yes, good for him.
Would you ever come back? He teaches English.
And would I ever come back to West Scranton High School?
Would you ever come back just for a couple of days? It's so urban now. It's so different than
6 damn years I was in that building.
It's so urban. It's a different.
And actually, I did go back about 10 years ago. I was their graduation speaker. And I've been back many times to classes over the years.
Okay.
Just I'm so damn old, it's all. But 10 years ago, I was the graduation speaker at West Scranton High School.
Okay.
And I'm still kind of upset about the street out front. It's Cosmo Yakavazi Street. What's with Cosmo Yakavazi Street?
So maybe you came back again.
I'm just kidding. I love Cosmo Yakavazi. In fact, I said in one of my books that that my whole idea of perseverance in life came from Cosmo Yakavazi. Because when I was in 7th grade, he was the star of the football team. And I used to stand after school looking outside. And in the middle of the Scranton West Side, there's a kind of a courtyard, right? And they had those things put up that you would run into, like sandbags. And Cosmo would run into the sandbag, and he would come back. And he'd run into the sandbag, and he'd come back. And he'd run into the sandbag harder and come back. And that sort of gave me a pattern for my own life. I've been running into the damn sandbag. But I've got these shoulders now, and I'm looking forward to the next few years of making use of this great strength I've acquired in all these years of running into the sandbag. So thank you very much.
Doctor, thank you. It was a treat. It was an insight. Glad you haven't gone Hollywood. But maybe you should try humor. Yes? For closing remarks and benediction, please welcome the 25th president of the University of Scranton, Father Kevin Quinn.
Thank you, Phil. Betsy Moylan just mentioned to me that I have a very hard act to follow, so I will be very short and very sweet. Let me add my thanks to all of you for joining us this evening on this special, very special day in the history of our university. In many ways, it is fitting that we are celebrating this milestone during this busy week on campus. The library has been buzzing with people all day, as it has been for the last 20 years. As you've already heard, yesterday we dedicated our new Loyola Science Center, and we trust that it will be a dynamic learning environment for our students, faculty, and staff for many years to come. In fact, we hope that this new building can, in some small way, do to the sciences what the Weinberg Library did to our campus some 20 years ago. This building, at the heart of our campus, has been the heart of our academic work since its inception. This new library, 20 years ago, gave our campus a chance to work together and to improve the academic quality of this university. I think it would be fitting for us to use this celebration as a chance to look back with pride on our accomplishments
but also to look forward to the promise of the future. The fact that this library is still so vital to our mission speaks to the vision of those who made it possible. The Weinberg Library has been able, by design, to adapt to the changing landscape of higher education in the 21st century and emerge as a foundation for teaching, learning, research, and scholarship on our campus and beyond. Tonight, there is no better way to launch our library's year-long 20th anniversary celebration than honoring a man who has given so much to the literary world. The extraordinary body of work of our honoree, J. Perini, poetry, biography, literary criticism, and novels, nothing he can't handle. The university recognized J. Perini with an honorary degree in 2005, and we were proud to count him among the university family. Jay, I want to thank you again for coming tonight and for sharing your work with us. Thank you. If you permit me, one more thanks. Thank you, Maureen Sullivan, President of the American Library Association, for joining us tonight on this great night in our history. Maureen, be assured that the Weinberg Library is the centerpiece of our sacred work, and we are committed to keeping it that way, even through the shifting landscape of higher education. Thank you. As higher education continues to change in the coming years, I am happy to know that our library will be at the forefront of this change, and our entire community will benefit. Congratulations to Charles Kratz and his entire staff on this great accomplishment, and I look forward to being a part of the next great chapter in the history of the Weinberg Memorial Library. God bless you all, and God bless the University of Scranton. Thank you.